From WTDG Toledo, Bridges, with your host, Doni Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hey, good Sunday morning and welcome to Bridges. I'm really glad to have you here. We're talking about something that's very important. We try every week on the show to talk about things of interest and things that we think are important to this community. But today's conversation, I think, is particularly important. Our community is facing a number of issues that are challenging, and there are lots of groups out there trying to contribute to changing that status for this community. And we have two representatives of our local ministerial group who are working very hard to change that situation for us. We have representatives from the Toledo Community Coalition, and I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to them now. We have the Reverend Dr. Otis Gordon, who's the senior pastor at Warren AME. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I appreciate it. And also we have the Reverend Dr. Robert Culp, who's the senior pastor at the First Church of God in Christ. Welcome. Gentlemen, welcome very much.
Thank you for having us.
So you have an initiative, and it's called the Toledo Community Coalition. Could you tell folks a little bit about what this is all about?
Well, first of all, we came together about a year ago in August of 2011. We saw the need to bring our community together. There was a group of pastors who sat down together, and we saw gaps in the funding in our community. We saw problems in those entities obtaining funding, and we thought that we needed to do something about that. So we came together, we started meeting, we started talking, and the talk led to action and the formation of the Toledo Community Coalition. And I have to say, I think we've been very successful. We have formulated an executive summary, and Dr. Culp can help explain that. I think we've done a good job, and we have a lot more work to do in that area.
Got some successes under your belt, though,
exactly.
in terms of this. So what exactly is the focus, Pastor Culp, of the group?
Well, it's multiple, and basically to improve the quality of life of primarily African Americans in this community. Obviously, contributing to any segment makes the whole better, but our concentration is primarily what involves the Central City.
And is that because you find that the Central City is in greater need than other areas? You talked about funding. Is service funding an issue in the Central City?
Absolutely, and we are unashamedly interested in helping the plight of African Americans in our community. Not that other entities do not need funding as well, but we feel that there is a tremendous gap in providing funding for African Americans in our community. So we are not ashamed, or not afraid to say that we're trying to find situations that help the circumstances of African American entities within our community. And we have 5 areas that we have identified.
And which
and they are health, education, quality of life is one, housing, and finances, and economics.
Economic development.
Right.
Yes.
And we see all of those as an integral part of our community, and the need to, if we are to advance as a community and to address the real systemic issues that we face, that we need to address all 5 of those.
Well, what do you think the issue is in terms of the lack of funding to Central City core services? And this is the reason I asked the question. It is not a secret that when it comes to being at extra risk for almost anything adverse, Black men are at the top of the list. They die faster, higher incidence of diabetes, higher incidence of death by crime, which has actually spawned a pretty serious discussion about identifying violence as a public health issue. It's not identified as a public health issue right now, but it's certainly because of the number of men who are dying, a number of people who are dying through violence, we have that discussion. So with all of the need focused, Black women are dying from HIV and AIDS at a higher rate than any other group of women and being diagnosed. 66% nationally are the new cases for HIV/AIDS in Black women. 12% of the national population. So when we have those kinds of numbers, what's the issue around lack of funding for services in the core of the city?
My response to that would be that, well, first of all, resources available are not what they used to be. Specifically where the African American community was concerned, there was a conscience, obviously growing out of the history of our nation as well as our community. However, now that the economic situation has so dramatically changed, and business and industry has lost its conscience, so that the resources that once were volunteered now are not coming even when you beg for them. So that the need is greater than ever and the resources are less than ever.
Is there a reason, though, that the resources are less than ever in this particular
obviously
community?
The economy. We're in a economy, we're in a recession. And whenever that happens, the problem occurs that the funding seems to trickle up. And this is a recurring problem that we've had in our nation. But what we want to concentrate on is how to find funding for those organizations directly impacted by the problems that we've just mentioned, and find a way to funnel resources to those entities so that they can be a viable part of the community and a solution to those issues that we face. The other issue is education, helping the community understand how important it is to deal with these issues. Sometimes I think that we as a group of people have this tendency to hide our head in the sand and assume that everything is fine. And as we all know, everything is not fine.
Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a tough question here, okay? So I'm on the outside of this discussion, so I'm just somebody looking, for purposes of this discussion, I'm going to ask this question as though I don't know anything about you. And I can talk to you about decades of focus on the same problems in the Black community that are not going away. What makes this initiative different? Isn't it time to just say to folks, look, you got to pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps. We have got to move on as a community, and there's no more time for this kind of approach.
Yeah. I rail at the idea of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. Sometimes you don't even have a bootstrap. My issue. Don't have any boots.
Absolutely true. But the issue is that we have not, the issue behind the question is that we have not had boots or bootstraps for a very long time. And there have been lots of money focused on programs designed to bring us along, and that's not happening so well. Our numbers are increasingly worse, not better, increasingly worse in terms of education, in terms of unemployment, in terms of health care. All of the economic development, although there are great strides by minorities in the development of small businesses. So what, at the risk of having you rail against me again in this conversation, why is this kind of initiative intended to be successful? What makes this different than all of the other things that have happened before?
Well, first of all, unity. A group of pastors coming together, and I had to be the first to admit that perhaps the pastors are guilty most of all
That's
of
on
not
my list
coming
too. I'm
together.
glad you raised that. That's on my list. We'll get to that second segment though. All right, so you're guilty of not coming together.
But this is an attempt at unity, an honest attempt to bring African American pastors together, at least those who, and I want to qualify that because we're not all African American, but those who serve an African American constituency, together for the purpose of addressing our like goals, and to do it in a way that's going to advance the solutions that we have never dealt with in the past. As you have already so eloquently pointed out, that in the past we have tried to address these issues and they fail time and time again. What makes it different is that a concentration of resources from a united effort. And I've come to the conclusion, and I've talked to Dr. Culp about the same thing, that we cannot do it alone. We need to do it together. And that's the only way that we're going to resolve some of these issues. It's going to take not just the church community, but it's going to take the church community, it's going to take government, it's going to take social service agencies,
takes everybody.
all of us working together to bring about a solution.
Pastor Culp, would you agree with that?
Yes. There was a time when basically as so-called African-American leaders that we were confrontational in our approach and placed the blame where we thought it should be placed. Truth of it is, there's enough blame to go around for all of us. None of us have succeeded in our responsibilities, so we're all trying to rise up and meet the challenge. We've settled for mediocrity. We've settled for just having some things being done. And so much that's happened has been so inadequate. And we really repent of it. I just sense among clergy that feeling that it's not just out there, it's with us, with our churches as well as the rest of the community. We cannot demand of others what we ourselves haven't really put forth. I've always felt that the community operated by, the golden rule. Whoever has the gold, they make the rules.
Makes the rules, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And we haven't utilized our resources adequately enough that we can bring to the table. So now we're saying we not only want a seat at the table to solve all of these issues and matters, but we want to bring something to the table as well. And here's what we can bring. So we're bringing ourselves together so that we'll find out what we've got to offer. And the key word, the biggest word of all probably that we've used, the buzzword for us is collaboration. We've allowed too much pettiness, too much jealousy, too many things that we can point back in our history. This is why we're this way. Well, that's no longer our intent. Our intent now is how do we correct this?
How do you correct it moving forward together? Okay, we're gonna stop here, but I want to start the second segment. We're gonna go away for just a few seconds, but I want to start the second segment with a discussion about the kinds of things that the coalition has identified as being necessary to make this change, and with whom you're having these conversations, okay? So stay with me, all right? We're going to go away for just a second. We will be right back.